I'm also aging. And so, again, selfishly, I want to feel better. And I want my patients to feel better.
Hello, I am Kim Peters, and welcome to the Illumine Podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about hormones. And today, I have Brandy. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Brandy Mulryan. I'm a women's health nurse practitioner specializing in hormones and vaginal health.
she was going to insert it at some point.
2 seconds.
Brandy loves women's health, so she likes to talk about that part.
I do.
Yes. All right. And I have Kim Winkley.
Yep. I'm Kim Winkley, nurse practitioner, actually a family nurse practitioner, and I'm specializing in wellness for the past couple years.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. If you or someone you know is interested in building your confidence and feeling like your best self, both inside and out, I encourage you to visit Horizon Med Spa and Wellness in Kansas City. We have 2 locations in Shawnee and near the Kansas City Plaza. We offer so many different things. If you would like to check us out, go to horizonmedspaandwellness.com, or you can see us on Instagram at horizon_medspa_wellness. And now back to the show. Hormones. It's a big subject. I feel like it's all over the place, and there are so many questions from patients. And this podcast is not just for the consumer, but also for other practitioners who maybe haven't introduced that into practice quite yet and want to know more about it. But I want to start with talking about why I brought hormone replacement therapy into my practice. So I'm the owner of Horizon Med Spa and Wellness. We have 2 locations in Kansas City. And I started with medical weight loss, but I was identifying that there was something that I was missing because patients were coming in not just concerned about their weight, but also telling me, I don't have any energy. I don't feel motivated. I don't feel like myself. I've got more abdominal fat. I'm trying to follow all of the things I did when I was younger, as far as like eating right, exercising, all these things, and it's not working anymore. I'm not making progress, so I need help with weight loss. And I had a solution for weight loss, but I didn't have a solution for all those things that were attributing to their inability to lose weight. So I looked into hormone replacement therapy. I researched it probably for at least 2 years, and brought it on. And the reason it took me a while to bring it on was because I didn't want to go to a weekend course and then suddenly be proficient in administering hormones to other people. I feel like it's a big deal, and something I want to be safe and effective and have good results. But so I just took the time and learned and then brought it on. And at this point, I feel like prior to me offering hormone replacement therapy, I was actually doing my patients a bit of a disservice by not addressing all those things. It's opened up my mind and my world. When I started out in primary care and I didn't know anything about hormones. If a patient came to me, they would say, hey, I feel off. Can you check my hormones? And I would cringe and be like, sure. And then that'll lead into the next subject I want to talk about as far as like optimal versus normal. But brought it on. It has been fantastic. Not necessarily, you still have to make money at it, but it's been fantastic because it's been such a great solution for our patients. But Brandy here, I think your why is a little bit different. I love to hear her story, and I'll just give us like a little short summary of what kind of brought you to where you are now.
Yeah. So my story was very selfish, kind of.
Yeah.
My ovaries don't work, so they
haven't worked since how old? Ever. Okay,
yeah,
so since she was young.
Yeah, I never started through puberty. So in that, I found myself head to head with doctors over and over, like, okay, well, how do we supplement like what I'm missing? And birth control. But then if I want to have a baby and do IVF, they're like, oh, you could have 10 times the normal amount of hormones, and that's completely safe. So then I investigated a lot myself, looked into the necessity of hormones, why, like what long-term implications that would have to lack them, and then went into women's health, which was natural because I was already doing mother, baby, and urogynecology, and women's health MP program helped set the stage for understanding the literature a little bit better, and then just dove in and loving it.
And I really feel that with you and how you address hormone replacement therapy, because it's not coming from a source. It's coming from this really like genuine, heartfelt place of I dealt with being denied feeling like the best version of myself for so long. And I don't want another woman, this is what you said to me, I don't want other women to ever feel that way.
Exactly.
That there's not a solution or somebody that will hear them. And so that's where I think that you've become such a star in my mind, is that your intention is so great. And then with that has fueled your knowledge, or your acquiring all this knowledge and understanding of the hormones and how they work and how they can help women and men feel better. So let's talk about, I think this is I kind of got to go back to my primary care days of, I went to the patients would come and see me and they'd be like, I don't feel like myself. And can we check my labs and my hormones specifically? And you know what? They were right. There was something wrong with the hormones, but I just didn't know how to address it because you're not taught that in primary care. I mean, were you taught that in school?
I wasn't taught how to check hormones, what a normal level is, what your optimal level is, or what to do with it. My background is actually in orthopedics for a long time. So I was in my practice for several years dealing with patients in middle age, elderly patients who were having issues with wanting to be active and just feeling bad, not feeling like themselves. And so I would just tell them over and over again, well, you get to a certain age and you no longer can build and maintain muscle mass. All you have to do is try to keep what you have, is what I would tell patients. I never really thought about why that was until I got into wellness and realized because our hormones are depleting and your hormones are what help control your whole body and how it functions. And so we just weren't taught the why. We just were taught to accept the fact that that's aging and that's how you're supposed to feel. And so myself, I'm also aging. And so, again, selfishly, I want to feel better. And I want my patients to feel better. And I started to just get really frustrated with not having an answer for patients. Mm-hmm. When GLP-1s came on the market, it's like, okay, we have an answer. We have a tool to help people lose weight. And they were, like you said, when we were doing the program, they were losing weight, but they weren't still getting that exercise part. They still weren't feeling themselves. They still weren't having that motivation. And so I think, based on what we've done over the past couple of years and what you've done with the practice is filled that gap, figuring out how we can get people to feel like their normal self again.
Yeah. So when I check labs previously, we're going to go back in time 10 years ago, I would check labs, and specifically, let's talk about hormones. If it came back within a normal range, then I would communicate that to the patient that it's normal, right? So it's normal. Mm-hmm. I don't know why you're feeling bad. Well, what is normal? So normal is when we look at the general population and we take women of your age group and we look at their labs, several women, and let's say they all have the number 20 for testosterone, let's just say 20 of testosterone. So then we're saying, well, that's normal for their hormone level to be 20. So then we're communicating that to the patient. However, that's not optimal. And how is that different? So optimal is where can that number safely go that we receive the benefits of that without any negative. And that's, even though that's not normal anymore, it's not normal because it's normal to be at your age and have a low testosterone. It's optimal. So how I explain it to patients, because I try to put it in words or terms that they understand, is that if you were offered a job and it was the same job in two different places, and the first place offered you $100 an hour, the second place offered you $10 an hour, which one would you take? Well, obviously, you would take the $100 an hour, but that's what we're doing with hormones when we're calling it normal. So optimal is for your testosterone to be a lot higher than 20, even though it's not considered normal. So why are we accepting a lower number and considering that okay, which is the message as primary care providers, we've been taught to communicate when we can be optimized and we can make $100 an hour. How does that conversation go with you?
Yeah, so I think there's two different things there. I think one, providers historically don't like to check things that they don't know how to treat. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that's, to be honest with you, I was taught, don't check a lab if you're not going to do anything with it, which is true, right? If I'm not, why am I checking this just to check it? But that's just a lack of understanding or knowledge.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's one part of it. The other part is normal is more of a mean average. It has much less to do with, you know, where that level needs to sit to function most efficiently for your body for current and long-term health. But it also, it just doesn't take into consideration that the ladies that are getting their hormones checked have been begging, borrowing, and pleading with their doctors to be checked. And so that average of what they have are all going to be low because they're the ones that are requesting it. I haven't seen a 20-year-old come in and say, can you check my hormones?
Right.
Nobody does that,
Right,
you know?
right.
Like, so we don't have like that. If we had that beautiful picture of their hormones of every person at their prime, it would be glorious. We could it'd be easy peasy to figure out where to put their hormones now, don't you think?
So there's two steps. There's twofold to this, right? So it's for those that are like seeking some help with hormone replacement therapy. There's first of all convincing your doctor to check it, right? And then the second, which is the hardest thing, is getting them to do something about it.
To treat it.
And to be honest with you, if they don't know how to deal with it, I wouldn't want them dealing with it either. You know, like I don't want somebody treating me for treating my hormones if they really don't understand it or what to do with it. So that's when a specialty comes in. So and that's perfectly normal. We accept that. You know, if you have a broken bone, you see an orthopedist. If you have a seizure disorder, you see a neurologist. So if you suspect that you have a problem with your hormones, then you go see somebody who specializes in hormone replacement therapy. So let's talk a little bit about how would somebody recognize that they might be deficient in a hormone. What does that patient look like?
I think the biggest symptom in women, I'll let you take men, Winks. The biggest symptom in women that I hear is I just don't feel like myself.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
So
they can't put their finger on it.
Yeah, they just can't put their finger on it. They're just like, I just don't feel like myself. I don't have any energy. Like you mentioned before, I keep gaining weight, even though I'm doing all the exercise I used to do. I'm doing all of the nutrition that I used to do, but the weight is sticking. And it's this minnow belly. It's this
minnow belly.
Yeah, this excess belly or excess weight gain and difficulty losing in the midsection, loss of libido, and just fatigue, exhaustion. They almost feel like they lose their confidence because they used to be very able to knock all these things off their list. And now they're like, oh, I can't even get one thing done. What's wrong with me? And then they self-deprecate. And it becomes a vicious cycle, really, in a lot of them.
And I think that a lot of people actually feel this before they hit a menopause age.
Definitely.
And their thought process is, well, it's definitely not my hormones because I'm
too young.
I'm too young. I'm not going through menopause. And that's really is the sum of their understanding of hormones. And they don't realize that testosterone plays a significant role in not just men, but women as well. So men, and I feel like hormone replacement therapy has been a little bit more like your testosterone replacement. We've seen that in men for a really long time. What are some of the things that a man might experience? I think it's a lot similar.
I was going to say, I think it's pretty similar. And I actually like kind of separating it too of, testosterone slowly depreciates with time, with the aging, and we're more on board with increasing that for men. And then I think with your other hormones for women, that's more kind of perimenopause, menopause, almost split them up a little bit. They're all hormones, but they're acting a little bit different. I think for men, they usually come in with low libido. That's kind of the first thing that they notice that they don't feel like they have control over, at that point. Also exercise, endurance, being able to build muscle mass. There are patients who are very active and they're still going to the gym, doing all the things that they normally do, but don't feel like they're getting the same results as that they used to. And then when it starts to interfere with their sex life, then it becomes a big deal.
So it's libido and erectile dysfunction.
Yes,
so
yes, both.
They have
very
problems
combination.
With that. And actually, erectile dysfunction is actually a very late symptom of low hormones.
Usually means you've been low for a while.
Correct, and it's pretty low. So if you're reaching that, and there are several different things that go into erectile dysfunction, but that's the first place that I would look for sure if men are struggling with that. But that doesn't mean, and I've had men come in and say that they don't have any problems with that, But that also doesn't mean that they're still not low in their hormones and that they could potentially feel better. And I'll never forget when we started introducing this, I had a patient that came in and I wanted her to fill out this questionnaire, like, do you feel these things? And I gave the list of the symptoms. And she looked at it and she said, well, yeah, but I'm 40. And that broke my heart that I'm like, well, wait. But that's the problem. Like, we are accepting the fact that we feel like, for lack of a better term, shit. And we're accepting that because we're 40, we're older,
been told
we're
that's
50.
Normal.
That's just part of getting older. Whereas, and I'll talk a little bit about kind of what my experience was as far personally, where I came to the conclusion that I needed some help with hormones, is I was having trouble sleeping. So I could fall asleep, but I couldn't stay asleep. I was having night sweats. I went to my doctor twice and asked him to check my labs twice because I could not figure out. I was convinced I had a blood cancer or something like that. That was fine. The other symptom that I think is really common that people mistaken is symptoms of cognition, brain fog, but specifically focus. So low testosterone, estrogen as well, as far as like attention and cognition?
Low progesterone.
Low progesterone. Okay. See, this is why I love her. She knows a little nitty gritty about all this stuff. Specifically for me, I was unable to finish a task. So I would, like, getting ready in the morning, it would take me twice as long to get myself ready to go. And I felt like I did nothing. Like I didn't even fully dry my hair, get my mascara on. And I would be panicking trying to get out the door. Why? I had 2 hours. How did that happen? So then I thought, well, do I have ADHD? Like, I've never had symptoms of that before. I feel like I'm a textbook version of ADHD, but I know I don't have that. So then I was talking to my doctor about it, and he says, well, I just think there's too much on your plate, which was true. That's a pretty constant. That's not going to change. But then what I found out was that low testosterone is actually linked to inability to focus. And here's the part of it that I think is important for people to know is that medications used to treat ADHD actually raise sex hormone binding globulin. What sex hormone binding globulin does is it grabs the testosterone that's available and it binds it so that it's not usable. So patients who think they have ADHD, and I'm not saying they don't, there are many that do, but there may be patients out there, especially women, that have low testosterone. They go and get checked for ADHD. They diagnose them with that. Then they're given medications for ADHD, which is actually making it worse in the long run. Yes, while they take the medicine, they might feel better, but they're actually binding up more of their testosterone, which is making them feel worse in other areas that testosterone helps. So I found that really interesting, that I think there are patients out there who have been diagnosed with ADHD, but it's really that their testosterone's low. But me as a primary care provider 5-10 years ago wouldn't have known to check that.
SSRIs do the same thing.
I think that's, I was going to say that. I think that's the case with
SSRIs. Antidepressants do the same thing. A lot of women go in and see their primary doctor because they feel like crap, right? They go in and see their primary doctor and they're like, okay, well, here's an antidepressant. And it's like, now you're blocking your hormones even more.
And you can't sleep. Here's a sleep
Here's another
medicine.
one. Yep. Here's another medication.
I think somebody else said this, so I don't always give her credit, but I don't remember her name. But she said, you don't have a Prozac deficiency or a Lexapro or a Cymbalta deficiency. You have a testosterone deficiency. So if we have a deficiency of something that's natural in our body, why don't we work on replacing that and repairing the problem rather than treating the symptom of the low thing? So and then we get into polypharmacy, where people are taking all these medicines to treat all these different symptoms, when if we would have been able to really look at the source, we'd have been able to solve it from there. And I think that's a huge interest for people right now, is that they are leaning back from or retracting back from all these medications and going, wait, what is the real cause of this? And they're more eager to look at natural options like hormone replacement therapy. Actually, let's talk about that. Is hormone replacement therapy natural?
Yeah. It's bioidentical, which can kind of be a buzzword, but the safest forms of hormone replacement therapy are going to be plant-based, yam, soy. They're going to be more molecularly
Equivalent.
Glad you said it.
To our body, so our body can utilize it. I mean, if you take a synthetic one that's not natural, you're trying to put two puzzle pieces together that don't fit, and so it's going to lead to more downstream side effects and risk factors that you're not getting when you're just replacing what we've always had.
Right. So bioidentical hormone replacement therapy is actually, it's the replica or the exact structure of what your body produces naturally. That's why it's called bioidentical. Whereas what a pharmaceutical company will do is, in order to get a patent on something, they can't patent something that already exists in the environment.
Yep.
So they get a patent, they take the molecular structure of, say, of testosterone or estrogen, let's just say estrogen, and they alter it slightly, and they get a patent on that, and it goes through trials, and they get an FDA approval for it, and then they're very proud of themselves for their FDA approval, and now they've produced a medication that is not the exact replica of what your body needs, but it's a little bit different. Does it work? Yeah, it attaches to some of those receptors and reduces your hot flashes, for example. I don't agree that it's the best route to go, especially when there's a natural option, but you're not going to see an FDA approval on a natural option because you can't patent something that already exists in the environment.
Yeah. Right. And it's mare's urine.
Horse urine.
That's what Premarin is.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that there aren't some pharmacologic bioidenticals, but they're few and far between.
Yeah. That would be ideal. So, okay, I want to back up a little bit and talk about the symptoms. So you named a few, the symptoms of low hormones. So weight gain or changes in metabolism. So you're just not being able to maintain your weight, or you're gaining weight and you don't feel like you've changed anything. Energy, get up and go. Your motivation to do your normal activities, or even just motivation to go exercise. We talked about ADHD or problems focusing. I just don't feel like myself. You brought that up yesterday. And I think that that's such a great, when it's hard to put it into words, I just don't feel like myself. I think a lot of people can relate to that. Sleep. So being able to sleep through the night. I can't believe how many people struggle sleeping.
I've heard a lot of people having almost like anxiety or panic attacks in the middle of the night, like waking up in the middle of the night and feeling like they just had like a nightmare or something. And it's because of those surges in hormones. And so that's another symptom that we just don't think about. We think about, oh, night sweats, those kind of things. But it's like, no, women are waking up in the middle of the night, like freaking out. Like, what's happening to me? Why am I up at 3 o'clock in the morning? And it's detrimental to their health.
Yeah. I wake up and I'm like, wait, I need to go back to sleep. Okay, sleep. And then that just makes it work.
And then your brain just starts racing, and yes.
And that was the first thing for me to come back was after I replaced my testosterone. It was about 2 weeks in. I woke up one morning and I was like, so that's what it feels like to sleep through the night. And I would say most patients that do, once they get started on it, that's the thing that they come back and they go, oh my God, Kim.
Yeah.
I'm sleeping, which that in of itself is going to change your energy level and how you feel the next day.
I think it helps everything, but that's the number one thing that everybody's struggling with when they first come in and get hormone replacement is like, okay, I can deal with some brain fog. I can deal with some of this, but it's like, I need sleep. And if you don't get enough sleep, then you're not going to be 100% the next day. And so when women finally sleep the whole night again, it's almost like a little baby, right? We sleep the whole night through and you feel well rested in the morning, and then your brain fog is gone. All of those things are so much improved, and that's usually pretty quickly.
That's that lovely progesterone.
I love it.
Oh, yes. So progesterone's for sleep.
Yes. I always call it our natural anti-anxiety. It's what we have a ton of when we're pregnant.
Yep.
And helps us with sleep, anxiety, depression. It helps to negate a lot of the ill side effects of high estrogen. So, menstrual migraines.
So, and progesterone, I really didn't know, how, for me, I initially thought, okay, well, if you're on estrogen and you still have a uterus and you need to take progesterone, I didn't realize there were so many benefits of progesterone and that you don't necessarily have to be postmenopausal to have some benefits from that.
Right. And you don't have to have a uterus to qualify for progesterone.
Correct.
Well, it's important that it's, mandatory if you're taking additional estrogen and have a uterus to protect the uterus. It's imperative that you take progesterone.
Mm-hmm.
But there are, some patients that aren't given the option of progesterone simply because they no longer have a uterus. But progesterone wasn't intended solely for uterine protection. It's also for all the receptors in our body that are responding to progesterone.
And it also plays a role in like anxiety, depression, irritability.
Yeah.
So that's another like classic symptom of hormone changes is mood swings. And we know that from like menopause, but you can also have, before you're going through menopause, you can also have some irritability, anxiety, and depressed like feelings even before you go through menopause. And that's actually closely related to maybe the what?
Perimenopause.
Perimenopause.
You can be in
Perimenopause roller
perimenopause
coaster.
for like 10 years.
Yeah.
You can be
Or
in
more.
perimenopause and you're going to be high, low, high, low, high, low. You can get into a loop cycle and that I think is also a big thing of having people understand to be treated and start on treatment before you hit menopause is going to help everything. And then I think when you're talking about symptoms, there's so many things that hormone replacement helps with your symptoms, but there's also a medical benefit too of like, yes, it increases blood flow, it increases your libido, but what does that do for your heart, your brain, all of those things? And that's what I think a lot of people have just missed the boat on, just not realizing how important they are.
Sure, yeah. So estrogen will significantly reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So we can talk about the whole like cancer thing here in a minute. So actually, let's kind of segue to that. So, do hormones cause cancer?
No, we have hormones in our body.
Yep,
tons of them.
Right.
In
So,
our
like
teens and 20s.
Correct. So let's talk about breast cancer specifically. So, the reason a lot of people don't want to take hormones is because they have been sent the message that hormones cause cancer, and I don't want cancer. Neither do I. No one wants cancer. But so, for example, in the Women's Health Initiative, the study went out that looked at do hormones cause what are the negatives of hormone replacement therapy, and they had two groups, right?
Yeah, there are two arms of the study. One was estrogen. Well, you have to be clear that these were synthetic, high dose, non-bioidentical synthetic hormones. And they were also 10 years past menopause in a group of women that were not even symptomatic any longer.
And we're
so you're saying
at risk
the
for
details of a
already
study.
Risk for,
You're saying the details of a study are important, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
it's a terrible study.
You can't just pick one message out without looking at the statistical evidence of it.
So these two arms of the study, one had estrogen and the other one had estrogen and progesterone. Progestin, excuse me. Yes,
medroxyprogesterone acetate.
So, which is the synthetic version. So they found that all these risks were associated with the group that had the progestin, which is the synthetic progesterone. And it wasn't even associated with estrogen, right?
Yes, I think partially that, but also partially the patients that were in the estrogen-only arm some of them had already had HRT, which could relay a protective benefit for them not getting breast cancer, as well as the fact that they didn't look at their inherent like genetic risk factors either.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even, I don't want to put progestins in a bad light either. I don't even think the study was clear enough to really say that. But all in all, the study just wasn't, it did a huge disservice to women.
Yes.
Really, the message from the study was that hormones cause cancer, and that is definitely not, when you look at the details and you dissect that study, that is not true in and of itself. I mean, if you look at an example like, do we know that smoking causes lung cancer? Yes, we've done that study 1,000 times over and over in different countries with different ages. We know, we can all reliably say that smoking increases your risk of lung cancer, right? That's because if it's true, no matter how many times you test it, you're going to come out with pretty much the same result. Whereas that is not true for estrogen. Estrogen does not cause breast cancer.
Right.
But the lack of estrogen does increase your risk of a heart attack or cardiovascular disease by 30%.
Which is the number one killer in women.
Correct.
Yeah. They actually did a study on a group of women in their 20s that had radical hysterectomies, no estrogen replacement, and within a 10-year period, they all had cardiovascular disease, and one died from a heart attack at the age of 29. Like, it's crazy.
Right.
So Yeah.
We're so hyper focused on I don't want to risk breast cancer when we're not, the information isn't even correct there to start out with. But then you forget that what you're avoiding is something that is actually at a significantly higher risk of killing you. Yeah. So health benefits reduces cardiovascular risk, reduces colon cancer, reduces risk of Alzheimer's disease, osteoporosis and fracture. And then both Kim and I have worked in orthopedics before, and we know that a lot of times a hip fracture in an older adult is what? A death sentence?
Yes.
A lot of times it is.
Takes 10 years off your life.
Or their morbidity or mortality increases. So their quality of life goes down. Whereas if they had estrogen throughout that, they may have had better bone structure and avoided that hip fracture altogether. Hormones do not cause cancer.
No.
At the end of and I think that's just getting the information from the right place.
And I think that, it negates some of the protective features of hormones, like protecting against cancer. We just said you have to have progesterone if you have estrogen. Progesterone is protecting against endometrial cancer. So it's like you can't shame it, but then not give it credit for all the good things that it does.
Yeah. So hormone replacement therapy not only helps you feel like the best version of yourself and be more productive and have better life satisfaction in general, it also is healthy for you and also prevents things that could obviously significantly reduce your quality of life in the future.
So, and your mortality.
Right. Well, I could talk about this forever. So many different things. One more thing I want to talk about symptomology is I think guys come in a lot of time with, girls too, but guys particularly come in with their first symptom being, I cannot make progress in the gym. So testosterone, we need testosterone to maintain muscle mass. You have to. So if your testosterone is low, no matter what type of exercise routine and how much creatine and protein you're ingesting, if you don't have that key component, that ingredient, then you're not going to be able to build muscle efficiently. You're also not going to be able to maintain it. So what happens in the body when we don't have muscle mass? What takes over? Fat. So then they come in, they're like, I'm not able to work out in the gym like I used to. I'm not gaining muscle like I used to. And I've got like more body fat. What's wrong with me? That's probably the number one thing that I think men come in, women as well, but men are a little bit more focused on it, I guess. And then joint pain. That was another thing that I had.
I
hip
have
pain.
joint pain.
Not anymore though, right?
Joint pain. So that actually brings up something is a lot of people will come in with joint pain. Just all of a sudden, all my joints hurt. Like, why? Why does that happen? And, you have estrogen receptors on everything. We think about estrogen as far as helping to build and maintain your bone quality, but we also have estrogen receptors in our cartilage, our ligaments, our tendons, everywhere. And so people will come in with generalized joint pain. And again, we put them on probably meloxicam or one of our NSAIDs, that you can take long term. And by the time these people end up at the age of like 65, they're on 15 different medications for all of their different symptoms. Whereas if we would just balance their hormones, they wouldn't need all those medications. And all of those medications have their separate side effects and risks. We don't talk about that.
And costs.
Everything else. And so, a lot of people will, especially and women too, like I said, not every woman is going to have the same symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. There are a ton of women that will never have night sweats at all. They just don't get that. They may have a different symptom. It's actually kind of interesting. My sister and I both are kind of going through some changes at the same time, and we both have the same symptoms. We both are having major issues with joint pain. And the estrogen is really helping that.
Well, if you think of estrogen as our natural lubricant,
yes.
We get dry eyes, dry skin.
Yes.
We get vaginal dryness. We get
it's the water faucet for your body.
Our skin starts to, our skin is less plump. It's it's very moisturizing. So, of course, in the joint.
Yep.
I have had women say that they feel when they've hit menopause or close to it, they feel like they've aged 10 years in 6 months. The changes, right. Yeah, and estrogen plays a huge role in your ability to create and maintain collagen, which is kind of the fountain of youth for skin. It's what gives it structure and a youthful appearance. This is really packed full of a lot of information. And so there's so many more things I want to talk about. I want to talk about the forms of HRT. I want to talk about hair loss, which is a big concern. Does taking testosterone cause your hair to fall out when really there's something else contributing to that? And I want to talk about that on the next podcast. We want to talk about testosterone in women because there's this idea that only men have testosterone. I want to talk about women and men with libido, thyroid, gut health, cortisol, and how you can actually combine HRT with medical weight loss to have a synergistic effect that not only helps patients reach their goal, but also maintain it in the long term. But this is all we have time for today. I just want to say a big thank you to both Brandy and Kim. They work at Horizon Med Spa. I have the utmost respect for both of them and their knowledge, and not just that, but their care and concern for our patients to help them achieve feeling like the best version of themselves. You can find us at Horizon Med Spa and Wellness. We have the Plaza location as well as Shawnee. Brandy, can you tell us about your Instagram and how patients would find you?
Sure. At BMulryan, BMulryan, WHNP for Women's Health Nurse Practitioner.
And Kim is over at the Shawnee. She's not quite as active on Instagram,
Yes,
but you can follow us at Horizon_Med_Spa_Wellness. Also at HorizonMedSpaandWellness.com. She's at the Shawnee office.
Make an appointment. Come see me.
Yes, I encourage you. Even it could just be a conversation about where you're at and whether you'd be a good candidate for hormone replacement therapy. But there's no reason to not look into this and give yourself the opportunity to feel amazing. Thank you so much. You guys have a great day.